And baby, you could be my Nancy Drew, but it ain't no mystery that I fancy you. And I could be the Shaggy to your Scooby-Doo. Me and you together, baby, we can't lose. And baby, you could be my Nancy Drew, but it ain't no mystery that I fancy you. And I could be the Shaggy to your Scooby-Doo. Me and you together, baby, we can't lose. My Nancy Drew.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Hugh Miller, and I run the Nancy Drew Walkthroughs YouTube channel. We are back for another episode of the Nancy Drew Walkthroughs podcast. It has been so long, over a year actually, since we recorded the last episode. I think it was quite literally 2 days before Midnight in Salem released, and here we are once again. It's been ages since we've talked. But before we actually do the introductions, there's a few things I want to just cover before we actually go into it. I've never done anything like this before, where I sort of have a few housekeeping things, but we're just going to do it, and then we'll go into the content. So first off, this show is not affiliated with Her Interactive at all. I've never really had anyone ask about that, but just in case we get a new listener asking about it, this is not supported, endorsed, or affiliated with Her Interactive at all. We are just fans expressing our opinions. So in regards to like future games, we know nothing. And the show may also contain spoilers from past games. I've never given that spoiler warning in the past, unless it's like too late. But now, yeah, just so you guys know, there may be potential game spoilers for Her Interactive's games in the show. I don't know, though, because we haven't actually recorded this yet, so we're going to dive in. Anyways, yeah, I'm Hugh, and I'm once again joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Eli and Victoria. We've all been apart for so long, and we're back. So, guys, welcome back. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Life's been weird, obviously, for everybody the past year, but doing pretty good, all things considered. It's good to be back. It feels good to be doing this again.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, too. It's weird to think that the last episode we recorded was before, all this pandemic stuff started, and it's definitely good to be recording another one.
Yeah, dude, that's insane. The last time we recorded an episode, the pandemic didn't even exist. Like, just think about that for a second. We didn't even know that COVID-19 was existent in our world at that time. That is such a weird thing. And obviously, because of it, lives have changed. Not just us, but drastically everywhere around the world. Lives have been changed in very negative and positive ways. And so I don't want to go too much in the pandemic, but I do want to hear what you guys have been up to over the last year, because again, it's been like we missed the entirety of 2020. So what are some of the biggest events that have happened for you guys over the last year?
For me, it was probably a complete career shift. I went from the hospitality industry, getting promoted into the hospitality industry, to realizing that it made me miserable and I wanted out. So kind of quitting without any sort of plan. But then just things kind of fell into place, and now I'm working in healthcare admin, which I really enjoy way more than I ever thought I would. So that's kind of been the biggest thing for me. And then other than that, things are kind of the same old, same old. I'm still streaming occasionally, just stuff like that. Really, other than that change in my career, things have been pretty much the same, but I'm doing well.
That's awesome. Where can we find you streaming by any chance?
Well, since you asked, you can find me at twitch.tv/vbudkey, which is VBUDKEY. And I stream a variety of content, but I do include Nancy Drew in that variety. I've been getting into the Ace Attorney series. I play a lot of Nintendo stuff like Pokemon, so if any of that catches your interest, feel free to stop on by. It'd be great to have you.
Yeah, right on. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, or listening on YouTube, I guess, the link for her Twitch channel is in the description. And I'm not sure if I can do descriptions for other platforms, but if I can, you can go check there as well. E, what have you been up to for the last year, man? It's been ages. What's going on?
I actually haven't been doing too much. I'm in senior year of high school now, so I'm just finishing that up. Honestly, not really much because of COVID. And also, we've had a lack of Nancy Drew news, so not too much in that field. I've been doing, speedruns of Nintendo games and such over the past year. And just continuing to do that.
And you do those live, yeah?
Mostly, yeah.
Cool. And where can our viewers find you streaming live?
We can find me at twitch.tv/Yandema211. And I don't do too much streaming per se. My streams are mostly just kind of archival runs and attempts and things like that.
Well, that's better than nothing, I guess. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, personally, I have really been doing a whole lot of nothing. I've been doing a lot of sort of adventuring with my friends at home when I am at home. I've been doing school for the last few months, my final year of university, second year. And yeah, just whatever other Nancy Drew stuff I can get up to. And here we are. We are on episode 5 of the show, and I am so stoked to be back and recording. Something I guess I should mention is that this episode will be a bit of a shorter episode, just simply because of time restraints. And that's hopefully that'll be changed for the next few episodes, or just for all future episodes. But just so people know, this will be a shorter episode. And I'm sure you can tell by the length of the video or podcast you're listening to right now. Anyways, E mentioned that there has been a bit of lack of news in regards to a new Nancy Drew game. And it's true, we haven't gotten anything. But that does not mean that Her Interactive is dead. In fact, it's quite the opposite. They have been so active on social media recently. They completely have redesigned their website, that just came out of nowhere. They hardly even publicly acknowledged it, which, again, is very abnormal for them. But they haven't said that said anything about a new game except that one is coming, and we don't know anything. So what do you guys think? Do you guys have any speculation on this? What could be coming, if anything?
I'm nervous, y'all. But I think what I'm hoping for, this is my hope. What I'm hoping for is that we'll wake up one bright, sunny spring morning this year, and we'll just all have newsletters in our inboxes that came at 4 a.m. or something. And it'll just be some big news drop, and everybody's going to freak out. And, there'll be a surge of hashtag Nancy Drew will trend on Twitter, and we'll have something to hold on to. But right now, it feels a little stale. It's a little dry. I think one thing that's been really nice is that during the pandemic, I have seen kind of an increase in the Nancy Drew community and streams on Twitch, and content creators on YouTube. And we might touch on that a little bit later on in the podcast. But news has been very dry, but I am pleased at the activity of just the fans in general. I've seen a lot of fan art and covers of songs and things. It's been really cool to see that kind of stuff. Absolutely. So I'm hoping that all of those people who have sort of banded together over this last year, that, our love for the series doesn't hold out for some vain hope, and that we get something soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's I remember when the Her Interactive had the 2 games a year schedule, and I'd play the heck out of the newest game, and then about halfway between that one and the newer one that's supposed to come out, I'd kind of get tired of that game just for a little bit, and all of them were pretty good, but to me, now that it's mid, I can't even say that it's one that I played the heck out of. It's kind of weird because, it was just kind of, I wouldn't say it's bad. It was very mediocre in terms of graphics, puzzles, all that stuff. And just to see kind of nothing else promised after that. No, we'll look at feedback. We'll try and make changes. We haven't even figured out if they're going to make changes. No one's really said anything from the company. So it's just kind of, I'm hoping we're not in another situation like we were in 2015.
Absolutely.
Or we're just not going to get anything for 4 more years.
Well, Midnight in Salem was so far from what the past games were, in some good and more bad ways. And it's kind of disheartening, but they chose to go down that direction. They chose that company to work with, so on and so forth. And so I had a thought the other day. I was just thinking, what if we are going to get a similar development cycle as we did with Midnight and Salem? What if we are going to be waiting X amount of years for them to find another company to work with, not the old one, but another new one, just for no reason? And then what if it's going to take them another year and a half to develop a new game that will be on the same level as Midnight and Salem? What if we do have to wait another 4.5 years? And that's just, I'm pretty sure Her Interactive will just lose their community at that point. Like, that's just ridiculous. And yeah, like, again, they haven't said anything. They haven't said anything about how fans reacted. They sent out those ridiculous emails last year about comparing Midnight and Salem to other games and whatnot. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. I don't even know what to think, except we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think that's where I get nervous, is that, like, it's one thing to slow momentum, but to completely stop momentum can be very dangerous for a company that's already considered indie. It's not like they're a AAA game company that is relying or has the support and sort of backing of a major company like Microsoft or Sony or even Nintendo. They don't have that crutch to help them in this, like, quiet time. I mean, some people have been trying to compare the series, like, oh, well, Metroid fans have been waiting 15 years for whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but Metroid is a Nintendo property and they have that security in that way.
Yeah.
Her Interactive doesn't have that luxury, unfortunately. And while the fans may be just as passionate, they just unfortunately don't have the resources that a lot of other game companies have at their disposal. And that's what makes me nervous. I think it's a dangerous place for them to be with no movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, something that I find interesting too is, I mean, they were kind of notorious back in like 2016, 17 for having sales like every other day. Whereas now they seem to be having like month-long sales, which is a very different approach, because that way people that maybe new, they're just coming into the website and they're like, well, we have a sale on right now. Instead of like, well, we just had a sale, we're probably gonna have another one like, tomorrow. Which can be enticing for new players to say, oh, well, this game's like 45% off. Sure, I'll just pick that up. But again, that's if they're just relying on sales figures. I can't even imagine what the sales must be right now when they're just trying to sell games that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years old even. It's, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but they are paying employees, and they have more employees now than I think they did last year, which is weird. And they're all in marketing, but either way, something is working. Something is going on, and I don't know what it is, and I'm dying to know, but they won't bloody say anything, you know what I'm saying? Just drives me mental.
Yeah, especially since fans were used to the system back in 2015 and beyond, where they'd actually communicate, and we'd have a post to look forward to on the Amateur Sleuth blog
Exactly.
every day that would give like some sort of detail, even if not of the next game, just kind of like what the office is up to, and it just kind of created a sense of community with the company. And now it's kind of like the company stepped out of the community, and it's just kind of letting us do our thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they don't like it,
I have to agree.
Then they'll delete our posts. But
yeah, I think what I worry is that they're confusing active social media accounts with fan connection, and those things are not necessarily the same.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think, they may be tweeting every day, but are they actually communicating to fans and listening to fans and keeping things transparent? Not exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember seeing like just the flood of comments on almost anything that Her Interactive would post. Like, where's mid? What's taking so long? This is ridiculous. We've waited for, a billion years. What's going on? And now I don't know about you guys, but I rarely see that. Now I see the occasional comment like, what's taking so long? But a lot of people are really celebrating the old games, which is great, because obviously I think they're totally worth celebrating. Because, obviously I've got games I don't exactly like, but I appreciate them more now because I know how much love and care and time was put, into the old games. and that the people that made the old games, they made the company and the series what it is, really what it was, I guess. And now that they're gone, it's like it just goes without saying, you don't really appreciate something until it's gone, and that's exactly kind of what's going on here. Yeah, I don't know. It's such an unknown right now. It's about as unknown as this pandemic, which is terrifying. And I guess since we haven't really talked about it since before it came out, Midnight in Salem, do you guys have any brief thoughts on just the game in general? Because again, we haven't met in over a year, and the game has been out for over a year. So yeah, what do you guys have to say on this lovely little game called Midnight in Salem?
I didn't hate it by any means. It definitely disappointed me in a number of ways. And unfortunately, with how many computer resources it takes to run that game smoothly, the replayability is very low for me. I do everything solely on my laptop, and while I think it's a pretty good laptop, it's still just a laptop. So I don't have the beef to play everything on high settings. And so because of that, I've been discouraged from playing it multiple times.
Definitely.
So I've played it twice, and that's it. But again, I don't hate it. I wish there were more puzzles. I think they slap the word puzzle on things in that game that are not necessarily puzzles.
Yeah.
But the characters were fine. The story was okay. I felt like it ended very suddenly. So I mean, I have critiques about it, but it's still not my least favorite game. I just kind of wish that it for as long as it took and how ambitious they tried to be, I don't think the payoff was there.
And I think there's a lot of missed opportunity in this game, especially with puzzles. The only puzzle people really think of when they think about the game is the ghost hunting puzzle, and even then it's usually negative feelings from what I've gathered. There were a lot of puzzles I think that they could have added more to, like the house puzzle sort of towards the end of the game. It seemed to me while watching the trailer that was going to be like the best puzzle of the game because it looked so interesting and intriguing, but really it was only like 2 clicks and you're done.
Right.
And it's like that could have been like a whole puzzle box, like multi-layer puzzle, like in a Haunted Mansion, that little triangle box or something.
Yeah.
But it was just, I think, very lazily put together, and like kind of you said, they slapped the word puzzle on everything. I think they considered like calling Tegan's boyfriend a puzzle or something.
They didn't actually, did they?
I feel like they released a list somewhere.
Oh, that is just embarrassing.
I remember there was a graphic that they put out kind of recently, or I don't know if it was recently. The whole last year has been a blur, but there was some graphic and it was like comparing the number of like characters and environments and puzzles.
Yeah.
And they like counted and numbered everything in Midnight in Salem and compared it to like Blackmore Manor. And I was like, don't you dare. But they did it anyway.
Well, that graphic, I know what you're talking about. It was the most arbitrary thing I have ever seen. I don't know where they got any of their information from.
No way.
Yeah.
They had to have slapped the word puzzle on everything in order to get this number.
Yeah, well, it's just like in when Staging for Danger first came out, on the original like DVD case, it said over 100 graphics, and it was just like blank scenes that you could look in on, but you couldn't do anything. And it was like another marketing material thing. And that was in 1999 they did that. And now they're just labeling anything as a puzzle. Like you take one step, you're like puzzle complete. Like that's kind of what we're on right now. It's terrible. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you guys. I think it was very lacking in puzzles, and the puzzles that were there were lacking in quality, like left, right, and center. But
I think the best puzzle in the entire game was that puzzle near the end where it was like a cabinet and you had to put all the drawers back in. I think that was the best puzzle in the game.
That one actually took a bit of time.
Yeah.
On the first few tries.
And the little circle things where you had to press the sections down.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, that was a good one too, because that was a classic Nancy puzzle where they give you a note, and in that note is the solution to the puzzle. And I can't think of an example of when that occurred early in the series, but I know we've seen that before, seen that happen. And I really enjoyed it. But again, where I think the game lacks in puzzles, I think it makes up for in narrative. And I want to differentiate here narrative with dialogue, right? Because I think the overarching narrative that they told, I thought it was quite well done. But the amount of dialogue that it took to get that narrative across was just painful. So much useless dialogue that I think Her Interactive was sort of like, we're kind of pushing our games as being educationally acceptable and whatnot. And I think they just tried to get that just a little bit further with this game by heavily selling the historical aspects of the Salem witch trials. But yeah, and then I also really like the music in the game. It's very, as soon as I hear it, like I know what it is, which is like, in kind of a negative way. But again, I really like the music. And yeah, the visuals are not great. I think the new navigation has some good parts. It wasn't finished yet for sure, but I thought it was a good step in the right direction. And I agree. The ending. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Navigation. When you take a step, it's like you get sometimes. When you take a step forward, it's like you get shot into a tunnel, like a black hole tunnel, and you just like, whoop, like
it's like the ending level is like in Bejeweled, where you're going through this time warp, and you're like, Jesus, I just want to take a step forward.
It's just like Nancy's like gonna take a step, and all of a sudden you just like fly.
Whoa!
Yeah, so I just find that amusing,
Absolutely, yeah. No, and I agree with you too about the ending. Like it was sort of just abrupt and just like there was this 15-minute bit of dialogue of everyone explaining everything, and then you're like, all right, here's a party. Now you can go home and call Ned. And I was like, whoa, what? What? It's so unsatisfying.
I'm going to use Alibi and Ashes as an example. So I'm going to kind of compare it to the events of Mid. So heavy spoilers, by the way. So you walk into that little stronghold of Brenda's, and you find all the evidence. You turn around and she's there, and you guys have like a little 1-minute chat, and then she's like, haha, you're trapped. And Nancy's like, oh no. Right, and then you have to get out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You leave. You take the evidence, and it's like a brief, like 5-second cutscene of Nancy being like, "Chief, here's the evidence," and he's like, "Nice job." And then it shows her, getting arrested, and it's great. But in Mid, when they're in the tunnels, you hear like a slight bit of line of Alicia's of her caving in the tunnels. I don't know how that worked.
Yeah.
But then you
exactly
get out of that, and then there's like a 15-minute dialogue of everything, and it just could have been done so much better, so much more concisely, and still get the same point across. And I feel like they went with too cliche of an ending, where they had the house party and they just so you can like make sure that everyone's fine instead of just doing the closing letter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where I think the old Her Interactive team mastered the ending of these games.
Yeah.
Like I know I've seen a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but I've seen people sort of trash on Nick Blahunka's work on the Nancy Drew games, but I thought for the most part he did a great job. And again, he understood how these shorter games work and how to write a game that can be made in X amount of time that still makes sense. And what the current team seemed to have was just unlimited time, and it was like in a bad way. And clearly, like we saw what happened with the game, and they didn't really understand how to write a game, or how to write a Nancy Drew game, I guess, which was very unfortunate. But again, I'm not saying that the content was bad. It was just the structure compared to the old games that wasn't as great.
Yeah, and while you were talking about that too, I was thinking even the beginning could also be sort of compared to Alibi and Ashes in the same way, where when you start off in Alibi and Ashes, you don't really know what the mystery of the game is yet. You're just put in front of a door, and you know what you're trying to do there, but the mystery hasn't exactly started yet. And so immediately as you walk in that door, the suspense is already built because of the the door slamming and the little clicking,
Yeah.
and it just kind of gets into the action right away. With Midnight in Salem, it drops you in a room, and you kind of explore, and it's just kind of like you're thinking the whole time, like, what's like the deal? It's just giving you kind of bombarding you with like educational facts already, and you don't even know what the game's about.
I think Secret of the Scarlet Hand did the same thing, where you just start the game and you're just like, who was King Pakal? And they're like, here's a history textbook of dialogue just for you. And I'm like, oh, dude, I just want to start the game, man. It's just, yeah, I think that for me is off-putting, to start a game with a history lesson. And they weren't really subtle about it either, right? Like, they were like blatantly talking about the witch trials and all that stuff, and it wasn't a great way to start the game for sure.
Yeah, and something else too I wanted to mention was they didn't use all of the sort of gimmicks they were talking about that would be new in the game to its full potential. For example, the inspect sort of thing, where you could inspect items. They use it once at the very beginning, and then never again. You don't really have to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I wish they would have used that more, because it seemed like a cool thing. But it's like, once the game taught you to do that, you look at everything thinking that there's going to be something there.
Yeah, it was like they just made it just to use it.
Yeah, it was like the key and then the jacket were like the only two things you could use it on.
Mm-hmm.
The one request that I would have is, please, Her Interactive, please do not ever make us use Joe Hardy's spectroanalyzer thingamabob ever again, because I don't want to touch it.
The Ghost
Hunter
5000. Oh, dude, I was one of the few people that I think did not mind that puzzle. I still don't mind that puzzle.
It was so vague and like so touchy and finicky, and it was so frustrating. I was like, there's no actual direction. The direction was, use this.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, game.
I watched so many people play the game when it came out, and 90% of them didn't know you had to turn the dials until like 20 minutes into the puzzle, trying, like, when someone in chat told them.
Oh, no.
And I was the same way when I played it. Like, I was just pressing the thing, and I closed out the game, and I was like, maybe opening it back up will do something, because I'm clearly hitting this button. And it's just, I don't like how they got rid of the thing in Sea of Darkness, where every time you open a puzzle, it tells you the basic directions in the bottom corner.
Right. Yeah, no, that was... Yeah, again, I think just the beta testing obviously did not go well for this game. Yeah, they needed like another 6 months on it, I think, at least.
And another thing with at least the ghost hunting puzzle is a lot of the textures for people who can't run at high res, high everything. Even like the most basic surfaces are so pixelated. I could barely tell that it was a dial.
Really?
Instead of a button. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when I streamed Midnight in Salem, I had to crank down the settings so much that like I was glad I had already played the game, because a lot of papers and like any sort of text anywhere, a lot of surfaces, basically unreadable.
Oh, that's awful. Really, that's awful. Let's disregard Midnight in Salem for a little bit here. We want to try and keep to a certain schedule. The last question I want to ask in regards to sort of the games, I guess, is if in a different world, let's say Her Interactive's team did not get laid off. If we jump to our time in a different world, do you guys think that Her Interactive would A, still be making games, and B, would they look the same as they did? Would they still be in the same style, like a 2D style? Or do you think they would have switched to a 3D style like Midnight in Salem is right now?
I could see change happening. However, I think it would have been a more gradual change, as we've already seen throughout the history of the series. We've always had UI changes and graphic upgrades and things like that. And I think that we would continue to see changes that way, and perhaps move slowly into a 3D / Unity type of look or feel or play style. However, I don't think it would have been as sudden. And I would have been completely fine with that. I'm not against change as long as that change serves a purpose and works well.
Absolutely.
And so I think that if things had not shifted within the company, they probably would still be making games, maybe not 2 a year, maybe not even 1 a year, maybe 1 every other year, but that's still more than we have right now. So that would be my gut instinct, would be to say I think that's what we would be looking at if those shifts had not happened.
Yeah, I think that their release schedule is so methodical, and they from what I've seen of the interviews that you've done, Hugh, with some past employees, they really wanted to keep to that schedule.
Right.
And so I think that they might have switched to Unity, but instead of waiting 4 years, I think they would have kept with their schedule as they gradually shifted, and started learning how to use Unity as they're still releasing games, and then 4 years later, they were gonna switch to Unity, because to me, once the I guess shift in who is CEO, once Penny started to control things more, it got to where it was kind of like a complete rehaul. But I don't think the original team would have done that.
Right.
That's just me, though.
I think they would have. I think they definitely would have switched to a full 3D engine at some point. But then I think they being the creative Her Interactive team that they would have totally found a way to incorporate the older style of games into this new engine. And they would have done it flawlessly, because every time they upgraded their own engine or changed the UI or the graphical style or whatever, it looked different, but it always maintained that certain Nancy Drew charm that it's always been there. And I know that if they did, if they would have gone to a 3D engine with the old team, it would have been no different. But I think what happened with the new one, my biggest disappointment with that game is the UI. It's so boring. There's no character to it. It's just like some white lines and some small white graphics. Compared to any other UI update in the past, it's always had some color to it, and it's always, there's always been something cool about it. With games like 16 to 25, it wasn't anything like special, but at the same time, it was very clearly Nancy Drew, right? Games 1 to 15, were all within that teal color, which we associated with Nancy Drew. And then the more recent games had that kind of like rustic style, wood texture and all that stuff to them, which I think that's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, user interface for the games. But again, just the white of Midnight in Salem is so boring and ugly. Just get rid of it. Add some color.
It's
something.
Very sterile and
Oh,
unfeeling.
yeah.
We've lost kind of the immediate visual charm of the series is just gone. It's now there's kind of like this no emotion to it now.
Well, the thing is, again, you interact with the UI so much in the older games, and with Midnight in Salem, it's very, very seldom that you do. And I still think, even though you don't interact with it much, they could have easily, they should have easily put more time into just making it look better. It was just so boring. And yeah, that's just the way that I can describe it. It's just boring. There was just nothing to it, but...
And at times it was confusing, because in previous games, I can't think of a game where you have a bunch of pieces of paper, but oftentimes in Nancy Drew you have 3, 4 different pieces of paper by the end.
Mm-hmm.
And they always made sure to try their best to make each one look different, so that if you use them enough, you know which one was which. And they never look the same. But in Midnight in Salem, they use the same paper texture, and you kind of have to guess which one it is. Same key texture.
Absolutely.
Book texture. It just seemed kind of lazy.
Totally lazy. Totally. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. They just a lot of wasted opportunity. We can only hope for the best in the future. Speaking of the future, when this episode of the podcast comes out, this event will already have happened. E mentioned this earlier. Starting tomorrow, over this coming weekend, is a Nancy Drew Speedathon, which is where a bunch of Nancy Drew community members, doesn't matter if they're well-known or not, just people in the community are coming together, and they're each speedrunning a Nancy Drew game to raise money for, correct me if I'm wrong, it's for a relief effort in Washington State? Is that what's going on?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's, and so E is going to be streaming Legend of the Crystal Skull, and again, a bunch of other people are streaming games as well, but it's really just to raise money, because obviously the pandemic has hit people hard, and the Nancy Drew games were all made in Washington State, and so it was, from my understanding, that was kind of the idea, was that they would play these games from a little company in Washington, and then they would try and give back to that community as well. It's a great idea, and it's really cool. It's for a great cause, and everyone just gets to hang out and play Nancy Drew. So E, I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or if you have anything to add on to that, but yeah.
You did a great job of explaining what it's all about. I think Hugh and B are going to be with me for a little bit, at least, during my run commentating. There's going to be, just a bunch of very dedicated people, both on stream and behind the scenes, trying to get this all running smoothly. And we hope that you guys, if you guys miss it, since this podcast will probably air after it's all said and done, you'll tune into the next one if we decide to do that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you guys do, I know you guys are gonna miss this, because I know the episode won't come out until after it's happened. But you can still go and rewatch them. You can go to twitch.tv/ND Speedathon, and that's spelled NDSPEEDATHON. They're going to be all there. I don't know if I think they're just going to be hosting various channels and whatnot. But yeah, you can go check it out there. It's going to be really awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I actually have to wake up tomorrow morning to be a part of it, which is but you know what? It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. We're going to have a ton of fun. Yeah. And then finally, speaking of the Nancy Drew community, and V mentioned this earlier too, but over the last year, there's been a huge explosion of people that are making content on Instagram, on Etsy, on YouTube, Twitch, just Nancy Drew stuff. Tons of new people, and it's super cool. And I think it really just shows that the community is still very much alive and very much in love with these games that Her Interactive has made. So I think I just want to take a few minutes at the very end here to discuss just some of the people that we have really taken notice of. And for me, I think some of my favorite ones. I think Vote for Holt is obviously one of my top favorites.
Definitely. Those guys are awesome.
Oh, I love them. They're so cool. They're so fun. They have great content. They're growing really quickly. They've got a great little community going over there. I've joined on a few of their videos, which is really awesome. But yeah, they've got a little Discord going. I shouldn't say little. It's 100 people now. It's crazy. But they're really nice guys. Their community is so fun. They've done some great videos, and they still have tons more coming. I would also like to shout out her on Instagram. She's called, Rika Cub. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Her name is Cameron, but she does these really cool Nancy Drew little merchandise things, little Nancy Drew custom enamel pins. And she's got even more stuff coming as well, such as the little Waverly Academy ID cards, I guess, student ID cards. And then, so she's really cool. She's got some great stuff, really quality merchandise. Go check her out. I'll leave a link to her Instagram in the description. And finally, a very recent one, 1 month old actually, on Instagram, is the Nancy Drew Times. Another guy named Carter who does some really cool Nancy Drew stuff. I really enjoy what he's been doing because it's not just your run-of-the-mill Nancy Drew stuff. It's just a little more exciting. He puts a lot of effort into everything he puts out. Go check him out. It's really awesome. And I'm sure there's more that will come to mind later. But I've got a whole list of community members actually on my website, ndwalkthroughs.ca. You can go check it out under the extras and communities tab. And that's my recommendation. So E and V, I don't know if you guys have noticed anyone else, but please go and shout them out right now if you do.
I had found a few months ago on Twitch, two guys, friends, Jason and Jack. They are twitch.tv/sleuthboys, and they are playing through Nancy Drew blind for the very first time.
Oh, nice.
And they're playing in order, so they are currently on Blackmore Manor.
Okay.
They are hilarious guys, super fun, really great little community. They just made Twitch affiliate, which is really exciting.
Oh, cool.
I've been happy to see that for them, but they typically stream on Mondays and Thursdays currently, but they are great guys. If you like any sort of point and clicks, they've been alternating Nancy Drew and then other classic point and clicks as well, so King's Quest, things like that. So if you like point and clicks, definitely check them out. They're twitch.tv/sleuthboys. And again, really hilarious, fun guys. I've really been enjoying being in their streams when I can.
That's awesome. That's so cool. E, have you seen anyone new around that you want to give a shout out to at all?
So I've been a bad Nancy Drew fan lately. I haven't really been much in the Nancy Drew community.
What are you doing on this podcast then, buddy? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
But I have noticed a really cool Nancy Drew content creator lately. Hold on, let me check the name. Nancy Drew Walkthroughs.
Go on.
Pretty much, even though I've been out of the loop, I just have his notifications on, and anytime anything significant happens or insignificant, he always posts about it, and I just know everything I need to know about the goings on of Her Interactive without having to keep up with everything, and it's great.
Oh, that
Dang,
is brilliant.
that sounds like a great channel.
Yeah, I'll leave a link to that guy in the description as well. That's so cool. I'm gonna have to check him out later. Anyways,
Have you heard Argle Pump? Brand new guy to the community.
I can't do it. That's so ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Okay. One final thing before we wrap up this little episode here, which turned out to be not a very little episode at all. I asked for listener questions on Twitter and YouTube, and we got only one response, which is totally okay because this was supposed to be a shorter episode anyway, so we can just sort of blast through this one. From Brittany, who I know has been following me for quite a while. Excuse me, just burping away over here. She's really nice, really great. She asks, if you could choose the premise of the next game, what would you want it to be about?
Okay, I'm not going to think about this too hard. I'm just going to jump in. So, Brittany, I think what I would do is I would kind of continue the end of of Mid, spoilers for Mid, the conversation that Nancy has with Ned that she wants to go to Austria with Ned. I think they need to continue with that, and I think Ned needs to go, and he needs to have his shot to be like an actual help to the mystery, more than just in Alibi and Ashes, because once Nancy gets out of jail, he becomes a little irrelevant. I want him to stay relevant, and I know we got some Ned haters out there, but I think Ned needs to shine to kind of break out of like the boring fuddy-duddy boyfriend box that he's kind of been shoved into. So I would say let's go to Austria. Let's give Ned a good chance to kind of, take the reins on part of the mystery, really have them work together. That's something that I would like to see.
Right on. E?
I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe Nancy Drew 34 could be, I don't know, Nancy Drew wakes up and mid was all a dream, and it's actually going back to the old style.
That is genius. She just wakes up in a hospital. They're just like, thank God you woke up, Nancy. We've been worried.
But all those jack-o'-lanterns I spent all that time on.
Oh, that is genius.
She'll have woken up in Hawaii, and it'll be the creature of Copper Cave too.
That is amazing. Okay, Her Interactive, you gotta take that idea and just run with it. That's genius. Okay, well, my response to that question is I actually would think or would love to see the next game be Her Interactive's last game. And I would love it to be Ship of Shadows, but in the adventure game style. Or like the PC game style rather than the dossier style. I think it would be such an amazing thing because that was a game that was canceled. It was kind of hyped up and it was really like half completed and then got shelved. But I think it'd be brilliant if they took that story concept, because we've never really had a game take place on a boat to the extent that I think Ship of Shadows would have been. And it's a great idea. I mean, it would have been like 2 scary games in a row, but I mean, they've done that before with Captive Curse and Water's Edge. But either way, I think it would be brilliant because then we could get that game or a version of that game. And then it would just be like a final send-off of the company. Ship of Shadows, and then that's it. It disappears into the mist. That would be my ideal premise for the next game, is that we do get the game that was supposed to come out but never did. That's really about it. That's my opinion on that. And that really covers all the content that we have laid out for this episode. And yeah, again, that was way longer than I thought it was going to be. I had hoped it would be about half an hour. Sorry?
I said it feels good to be back, though.
Oh, it's so good to be back. I think that's why it went on a bit longer, because I was like, oh, I just want to keep talking. Anyways, yeah. So a few things before we go into the full outro. So the theme song to the show, which I've never really done a verbal credit for, is called Nancy Drew, and it's by the band named Mecca, or artist named Mecca. You can find them on Bandcamp, and that is where I found the song. And I don't really know what else to say about that, but it's a good song, and you can go and download it for either for free or to pay them a little donation. I think it's worth it to pay a donation because it's a great song. Support them, support their work. And in regards to the actual show, we are now on several major podcast platforms, such as Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, a few more as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, this episode, past episodes, and all future episodes are going to be on these platforms as well. So if you have a preferred podcast platform, go check us out on those, follow us, and just make sure that you'll make sure that you'll never miss another episode. And like I said earlier, we're hoping to make this a more potentially semi-regular show because, again, this is kind of like season 2. Season 1 was sporadic, 4 episodes and all over the place. This time it's going to be orderly, hopefully better, and yeah, just overall more exciting. I'm so stoked to be back. Once again, E and V, thank you guys so much for coming back for this episode. I'm so glad we found a time pretty quickly, actually, that we could all fit into, even though it's actually quite late for Victoria right now. Thank you for staying up so late.
Life.
Hey? Sorry, you cut out there at the end.
Just that East Coast life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That 3-hour time difference. It's great. So where can we find you guys, just so people can keep in touch between episodes?
Yeah, so my Twitch, I'm everywhere as VBudkey, so feel free to follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. It's all VBudkey, but you'll find me probably the most often on Twitch. So feel free to pop into my streams. It'd be great to have you. Right
on. And E?
And I'm almost mostly on Twitch as well. Twitch and Twitter as Yandema211. I'm also around on Discord. I'm in Hugh's Discord server, which, by the way, you guys should join that.
Yeah, join that.
His streams as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, if I may,
please go ahead.
Hugh, me and Hugh are going to be in another game.
Oh, yes, we are. Yes.
So, if you guys have not been following Argo Fump and Paul Franzen's company, Rock Studios, they make really fun games that you can buy and play on Steam. And me and Hugh are in a few of them. And Internet Court comes out on April 6th, which is like
gosh.
2 weeks away.
April 6th.
So, yeah, so buy it, support the company, support them. If you're a Nancy Drew fan, you should love Argo Fump anyway. So,
Exactly.
don't be a fake fan and buy his game. Especially because we're
Absolutely.
going to be in it.
Exactly, absolutely. No, it's going to be a great game. I'm so looking forward to playing it. I personally had a ton of fun doing my roles. I'm sure that V can say the same thing. But yeah, it comes out
mine was fun too.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. It comes out on April 6th, 2021. I'm actually going to join Paul Franzen and Argo Fump and Timothy Mark for the next episode of the Rock podcast, in order to help promote the game. That should be coming out within the next week or so. We're going to record that soon. Sunday, actually. But yeah, I'm so stoked about it. It's going to be a great game. Go check it out when it comes out, I guess. And again, I'm Hugh Miller. You can check me out at my YouTube channel called Nancy Drew Walkthroughs, which E very kindly mentioned earlier. I live stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/LegoFreak689 as often as I deem necessary. I am on Twitter at @the_Hugh Miller, THE, not THEE, THE, and those are probably the best places to find me. But yeah, once again, thank you all for listening. It's just great to be back, and thank you again, E and V, for joining me. I'm so glad to have you guys back doing the show once again.
Yeah, no problem. Here's to having news to talk about.
Yeah, yes, exactly. The hope, the fingers crossed. Awesome. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. So have a wonderful rest of your day.
And maybe you could be my Nancy Drew, but it ain't no mystery that I fancy you. And I could be the Shaggy to your Scooby-Doo. Me and you together, baby, we can't lose. My Nancy Drew.